What happens when a country finally decides to retaliate for relentless bombings? Imagine the quiet city of Belgorod, nestled close to the Ukrainian border, suddenly plunged into darkness after a series of savage airstrikes. It all began when Russia, desperate to maintain its failing strategy, launched a fierce assault on Kyiv. This time, instead of sitting back, Ukraine had a different idea. On September 29, Ukraine unleashed a powerful response that sent shockwaves through Belgorod. Utilizing long-range weapons, possibly sourced from allies, Ukraine targeted vital energy facilities. One of its primary targets was the thermal power station, along with a crucial electrical substation. These key infrastructures were essential for sustaining life in Belgorod, ensuring its residents had power and water. The aftermath of this battle was catastrophic for Belgorod. Reports indicated widespread blackouts across the city, confirmed by the region's governor, Vyacheslav Gladkov. In his statements to the press, he lamented the severe outages which left hospitals and police stations reliant on backup generators. The ripple effect of Ukraine's strikes limited water supplies, painting a grim picture for the inhabitants as they braced for the chaos. Why did Russia acknowledge this specific attack when it often downplays Ukraine's victories? The answer lies in its impact on civilians. Despite no direct casualties reported from this strike, the blackouts created a narrative Russia was eager to exploit, attempting to depict Ukraine as the instigator of terror. This was no mere skirmish, it was a calculated strike aimed at destabilizing the very lifeblood of Belgorod. Ukrainian forces managed to score direct hits on key components within TET's 4, the power generation facility, igniting flames that darkened the sky with thick smoke. Images circulated showing the devastation, where smoke billowed into the air, marking the site of the destruction. What's shocking is the stark contrast in tactics between the two nations. Ukraine's carefully planned strike targeted military and infrastructural systems vital for Russia. Meanwhile, Russia's recent assaults on Ukraine had led to countless civilian casualties. On September 28, as Russia was attacking Ukrainian cities with a mix of missiles and drones, a tragic loss occurred when a 12-year-old girl lost her life amidst the chaos. The difference in their military philosophy is striking. Ukraine aims for precision, hitting specific targets that significantly affect its adversaries' capabilities, while Russia's frequent indiscriminate attacks leave devastation in their wake. How long can this cycle of retaliation continue? As tensions rise, Ukraine has sent a clear message to Moscow: if you strike our cities, we will hit back even harder. This escalating conflict reveals the brutal reality of war, making one ponder whether peace is simply an illusion amidst the chaos, a question that lingers in the hearts of many as they witness the unfolding drama on the edge of their borders. Gladkov's words painted a grim picture of disruption in Belgorod, exposing Russia's tactical spin on civilian hardship. This reveals the pattern behind Moscow's responses to Kyiv's bold counterstrikes, the infamous drone debris fable, trotted out time and again to downplay Ukrainian success. But scratch beneath the surface of that tired tale, and what emerges shocks the soul. Why would Russia, so quick to dodge blame, suddenly own up to the Belgorod assault? The twist lies in the human toll, not blood spilled, far from it, no one perished or bore wounds, per the reports at the time. Yet, power vanished for countless souls, water trickled dry in some homes, a chilling plunge into darkness that Russia weaponized. The acrid scent of burnt wiring lingered in the air, the deafening hum of silence from once buzzing appliances gripping families in fear. This wasn't mere accident, it was perfect fodder for Kremlin's narrative machine. Imagine the unyielding glare of propaganda lights spotlighting terrorist acts by the Kyiv regime. Russia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs curates an online dossier, a venomous catalog branding any Ukrainian retaliation as atrocity, especially if it brushes civilians. But peel back the rhetoric, it's a one-sided script that erases Moscow's relentless barrage on Ukrainian cities with drone swarms and missile storms. Picture the thunderous crashes exploding through peaceful neighborhoods, shattering lives long before Ukraine dares to respond. In this twisted game, Kyiv isn't allowed to fight back. Any hint of civilian fallout becomes Russia's golden ticket to brand Ukraine the monster in a war of its own making. And here in Belgorod, even with 0 lives lost, they seize the moment to smear and dominate the global conversation, a brazen, transparent ploy that fools almost no one beyond Russia's borders. Doesn't that hypocrisy sting like an icy slap in the face? If Ukraine spared civilians, unlike Russia's savage spree across the conflict, what exactly did they obliterate in Belgorod? The answer crashes in like shattering glass, revealed in Kyiv Post's pinpointed visuals. Geolocated footage captured Ukraine's strike landing at least 5 brutal, direct blows on TET's 4, a hulking thermal powerhouse pulsing with energy. Flames roared to life as the facility crumbled, a fiery inferno devouring the night sky with billowing smoke that choked the senses. Debris rained down in violent showers, pummeling fuel tanks and supply lines, shattering turbines, and pulverizing the electrical hub arched earlier. The ground trembled under the onslaught, a terrifying symphony of explosions echoing through the city, leaving behind scorched earth and the bitter stench of destruction. This wasn't random chaos, it was surgical devastation, aimed squarely at the beast powering Russia's border stronghold. As sparks flew and alarms blared in the distance, whispers of deeper secrets began to surface. What monstrous tool from Ukraine's arsenal unleashed this havoc, a force absent from the battlefield for ages? And why now, just as Russia's own shadows loom darkest? The plot thickens, with payback's echoes still vibrating. In a chilling twist, a devastating strike on a critical energy facility in Belgorod has put the world on edge. This facility, essential for generating electricity, erupted into flames, sending massive plumes of smoke into the air. Twisted metal and debris scattered across the site, signaling a direct hit that would drastically affect the daily lives of its residents. Just moments before this catastrophic event unfolded, Russia had unleashed a barrage of missiles and drones on Ukraine, claiming innocent lives in its wake. This was not just warfare, it was a brutal message sent back to Vladimir Putin: disrupt our cities and we will retaliate in kind, and harder. Reports indicate that the facility Ukraine targeted had been upgraded in 2007, equipping it with a modern gas turbine capable of producing vast amounts of thermal energy. This power was crucial for Belgorod, supplying over a third of the city's energy needs. Can you imagine the panic as the lights flickered and went out? Families huddled in darkness, unsure of what awaited them. Hours after they struck, footage surfaced, from multiple angles, showing an inferno that Russia could not deny. Flames raged inside the TET's 4 site, a stark confirmation of the strike's severity found even in the reports from Astra Telegram. Although Russian officials attempted to downplay the attack's impact, they couldn't hide the truth. Hundreds, if not thousands, of civilians were plunged into darkness. Water supplies were disrupted, leaving many scrambling. The scale of the damage was undeniable and sent shockwaves of fear throughout Belgorod. The fires raged, bright against the night sky, marking a boundary of war that suddenly reminded everyone how close this conflict truly was. But could this devastating blow be the act of desperation from a Ukraine that had been silent for too long? Moments before the strike on Belgorod, a massive drone assault from Russia had left Ukrainian cities in ruins, killing civilians innocently going about their day. Might this shift in approach indicate a turning tide, one where Ukraine takes the fight directly to the aggressor? As the smoke settled in Belgorod, another mystery lingered in the air. What weapon had been used that Ukraine had not deployed in years? And what's next in this escalating conflict? The tension thickens, leaving the world to ponder the consequences that lie ahead. In the last moments, we uncovered how Russia was forced to admit the devastating blow to Belgorod. Its scale proved too immense to conceal. The attack crippled a key power plant, leaving citizens in the dark. And now, the truth explodes forth. Why did Ukraine launch this brutal retaliation? Was it just random fury, or something deeper? Imagine the earth rumbling under your feet as missiles scream through the night sky. This assault served as grim payback for Russia's savage actions mere hours earlier. It carried a chilling warning aimed directly at Vladimir Putin. Strike our cities hard, and we'll shatter yours even more ferociously. The scent of burning fuel lingers in the air. Can you feel the sting of panic spreading? Just before Ukraine unleashed its arsenal on Belgorod, Russia ignited another colossal barrage of missiles and drones across Ukraine in 2025. The Kyiv Independent detailed the horror on September 28. A relentless drone swarm endured nearly 12 hours, launching almost 500 drones and over 40 missiles, targeting every corner of Ukraine, even the heart of Kyiv, slashing through defenses like a storm. 4 lives extinguished by the onslaught. 70 more wounded, their cries echoing through shattered streets. Among the fallen, a 12-year-old girl, her innocence stolen forever. The cold grip of fear clutches your chest as sirens wail. Russia's projectiles ravaged 20 sites, imploding a towering 5-story building in Kyiv. 7 districts crumbled under the weight. Debris rained down, sharp and unyielding, scraping against skin in the chaos. Why does Russia seed terror indiscriminately? Details reveal Russia's merciless strategy. 5 Tu-95 bombers roared from Olynya airfield in Murmansk at 1:45 a.m. local time. 40 minutes later, MiG-31K bombers surged, sparking alerts nationwide. More Tu-95 jets blasted from Engels airbase. Angles multiplied for maximum devastation. Success sealed in blood. Euromaidan press dives deeper. Strikes battered Zaporizhia, Sumy, and Khmelnytsky oblasts. Missiles pierced air defenses, smashing into homes and vehicles. The acrid smoke of explosions fills your nostrils, thick and choking. Caliber, Kh-101, and Kh-55 cruise missiles deployed ruthlessly. Hundreds of Gerbera, Shahad-type Garand drones, and deceitful decoys joined the fray. Each buzzed like a swarm of angry hornets. How can this savagery be justified? Ukraine stood firm. Horrific civilian toll mounts, how many more must suffer? The air crackles with tension, and you wonder, what shocking twist lies ahead in this cycle of vengeance? In a startling display of military strategy, Ukraine and Russia are locked in a chilling conflict, underscored by a recent brutal exchange of airstrikes. Just as Russia unleashed a torrent of missiles and drones against Ukrainian cities, Ukraine retaliated with a fierce counterattack on Belgorod, a border city that suffered extensive damage. The question on everyone's mind is, what happens when the tormentor becomes the victim? On September 28, as Russian missiles struck civilian areas in Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky warned that if Russian strikes continued, retaliatory measures would soon follow. True to his word, when Ukraine targeted Belgorod, it symbolized not just retribution but a statement: strike us, and we will strike back harder. Explosions rocked Belgorod, especially at a power station known as TET's 4. This facility provided power to over a third of the city. The moment was explosive, both literally and metaphorically. Long-range weapons, potentially supplied by allies, ignited flames and chaos, sending plumes of black smoke spiraling into the sky, a vivid reminder that war often blurs the lines of morality. The attack was confirmed by local officials, who lamented the ensuing blackouts and the impact on civilian life, including the critical supply of water. However, in the aftermath, absolutely no reports indicated civilian casualties. So, why was Russia confirming the assault? An indication that the strike had struck home, hitting civilians where it hurt: electricity and water supply. In an attempt to paint Ukraine as terrorists, Russia's narrative crumbled under the weight of the facts. A distant yet haunting memory echoes in the minds of those affected: the day their world was upended by explosions and fear, a day that began like any other. The scent of burning debris filled the air, mingling with the panicked cries of those in shock. What's starkly evident is the contrasting nature of strikes. Ukraine aimed for military targets, while Russia's onslaught has often led to civilian bloodshed, adding to a grim tally of over 13,000 dead at the hands of Russian aggression. As the dust settled in Belgorod, questions loomed larger. Was this a mere act of retaliation, or did it represent a new chapter in the ongoing conflict? With the world watching, the narrative was clear: Ukraine is not just defending its land, it's sending a resounding message across the border. The stakes are high, and every strike holds the promise of a new, unforeseen twist. The heavy toll on civilians from Russia's relentless assaults escalated the tension between the two nations. Ukraine was not going to allow this strike to go unanswered. Just a day before, President Volodymyr Zelensky firmly warned that retaliation was imminent. Amid the threats of missile and drone attacks on Ukraine, he issued a powerful declaration during a press briefing in Kyiv: "If they threaten blackouts in our capital, let it be known in the Kremlin that their capital will suffer similarly." Though Ukraine did not strike Moscow directly, the impact on Belgorod sent a clear message. The attack echoed with defiance: Ukraine could unleash its might as fiercely as Russia. On September 29, Ukraine executed its striking statement thanks to US-made technology. The air was thick with tension as explosions echoed in Belgorod. Ukraine targeted key energy facilities, where the night sky lit up with fierce flashes and the ground rattled under immense power. The thunderous roar of detonations left a formidable impact, not in Moscow, but in Belgorod, where critical power infrastructure fell under the assault. This wasn't mere posturing, it was revenge. Ukraine's precision gripped the city as they launched the US-manufactured M31 GMLRS missiles, renowned for their accuracy and powerful 200-pound warheads capable of reaching targets over 100 miles away. This specific operation marked a significant tactical shift. Unlike their previous drone strikes, aimed more at oil refineries than key infrastructure, this was a calculated strike on a vital energy hub. Zelensky's assertion came to fruition as chaos unfolded. Belgorod descended into darkness, reminiscent of the power struggles plaguing Ukraine. As sirens wailed followed by eerie silence, the consequences echoed through the city. Hospitals and emergency services were forced into emergency measures. For a brief moment, the citizens of Belgorod felt a similar dread as those in Ukraine. There was no loss of civilian lives reported, yet the damage was profound. Power outages swept across the city, severing water supply and straining resources. Resistance emerged with every explosion. The message was firm: Ukraine would retaliate. With precise targeting and a clear objective, they aimed to deliver a resounding message to Russia. As Belgorod's heart faltered, question lingered: could Moscow be next? This plunging intensity set the stage for further escalations. The images and footage of the burning TET's 4 facility streamed in, reflecting the impactful hit. But what lay ahead? Would Russia double down, or would they finally reckon with the repercussions of their aggression? The night was still young, and the war was far from over. This wasn't merely retaliation, it was a flashpoint, a dynamic shift, and the world awaited the next unfolding chapter in this dramatic saga. In the shadow of escalating tensions, Ukraine harnessed its arsenal, wielding launch platforms like the HIMARS systems, with around 40 in operation by May 2025, and the formidable M270 multiple launch rocket systems to unleash devastating strikes across vast distances. What if I told you the weapon that crippled Russia's Belgorod wasn't just any tool in Ukraine's kit? Alerts blared like thunderous sirens, piercing the air. Smoke rose thick, acrid and choking, wrapping the night in a shroud of dread. Explosions echoed, a symphony of destruction rattling bones and shattering calm. Imagine the blast's heat searing skin, the ground trembling underfoot as if the earth itself recoiled. Picture this: the specific variant of the M31, that precision-guided missile, slamming into Belgorod with merciless precision. It's a brand new version, revolutionary in its reach. The Kyiv Post revealed it all. Ukraine's earlier M31s were limited, short-range munitions. Powerful, sure. But not enough to plunge deep into enemy territory like this. Now? These upgraded bombs leap up to 100 miles, crushing targets in Belgorod or even Kursk with ease. The shockwaves? Felt miles away, a bone-rattling pulse. Why didn't we hear of such strikes before? Rhetorical ponderings aside, Ukraine overflows with US-made arsenal capable of this. President Joe Biden even okayed limited use against Russian soil back in November 2024. But seasons shift. Biden exited. Enter Donald Trump. Details emerged in the Wall Street Journal that August. Exclusive sources? They spilled the beans. A fresh policy emerged, blocking Ukraine from U.S. weapons on Russian targets. For 4 months, it rained. Now? An approval gauntlet. Just to launch anything American dubbed at Russia, Ukraine bows through a process. Final call? With Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Months ticked by. The Pentagon, under his watch, vetoed it all. No tales of ATACMS or M31 strikes against Russia graced headlines. Ever wonder why the silence? Rumors swirled, but facts screamed louder. Hegseth's no echoed relentlessly. Then, misfortune struck. Anticipation builds. Earlbomb yet, against all odds, Ukraine defied the barrier in September, altering the war's course forever, with twists none anticipated, leaving viewers gasping at the raw humiliation of a superpower's crumbling facade. Will Putin retaliate, or crumble beneath this audacious blow? The horizon promises chaos. How far will Ukraine's newfound fire burn, and what humiliation awaits next? Stay tuned as the lines blur between defender and invader. Unseen shadows, Ukraine's bold message to Russia in September 2025. The tides of battle shifted dramatically when Ukraine launched a fierce and daring strike on Belgorod, a city nestled on the border with Russia. This was no ordinary attack. It marked a significant turn in Ukraine's military strategy, showing that it was ready to retaliate fiercely against Russia's provocations. The air was thick with tension, and the stakes had never felt higher. What drove Ukraine to act? Just hours before the strike, Russia unleashed a relentless barrage of missiles and drones on Ukrainian cities, claiming innocent lives and wreaking havoc. Amidst the chaos, a chilling question lingered: would Ukraine stand by as Russian missiles fell like rain? The answer was a resounding no. Ukraine, fueled by outrage and desperation, responded with precision, aiming straight for the heart of Russia's energy infrastructure. As the sun dipped below the horizon on September 28, those in Belgorod would be met with an overwhelming darkness. Long-range weapons ignited the night sky, striking critical energy facilities, specifically a thermal power station and an electrical substation. The aftermath was devastating. Smoke billowed high and blackouts spread like wildfire, blanketing entire neighborhoods. The storm of emotions was palpable, and residents were left grappling with an unseen enemy that had struck at their very existence. But why did this strike resonate so deeply on a global scale? It was not just about the immediate damage inflicted, it represented a seismic shift in the rules of engagement. Ukraine's ability to utilize advanced American-made munitions, a move previously deemed off-limits, signaled a dramatic new chapter in international military support. The decision echoing from the U.S. government carried a powerful implication: Ukraine could fight back with greater force. The recent meeting between President Zelensky and President Trump had shifted the narrative, with Trump expressing openness to lifting restrictions on certain military aid. Just days before the attack, speculation filled the air regarding ATACMS missiles and Tomahawk cruise missiles. The ripple effect of Ukraine's striking success was now starting to unfold. As reports spread, Russia's propaganda machine kicked into overdrive, accusing Ukraine of terrorism while trying desperately to downplay the devastating losses. The striking visuals and confirmed damage left everyone questioning who were the real aggressors in this conflict. Each strike from Ukraine not only served as a retaliation against past traumas but also as a powerful message to Vladimir Putin: if you strike, we will respond with relentless fury. The Belgorod strike was laden with ramifications, both for the physical landscape and the geopolitical climate. In a game of chess that had spiraled into chaos, with each side desperately maneuvering for advantage, could this bold act of defiance turn the tide in Ukraine's favor? As the smoke cleared, the world watched closely, wondering just how far Ukraine would go in its quest for justice. In the silence that followed the chaos, one could almost hear a whisper. Was this the beginning of a new era in warfare? Or merely a fleeting strike in an unending conflict? The air hung heavy with uncertainty, leaving citizens yearning for peace while grappling with the signs of impending struggle. Would the message resonate, or would it trigger an even more volatile response from Russia? The answers seemed hidden among the shadows of the battlefield. In the midst of escalating tensions, the situation between Ukraine and Russia took a dramatic turn. As the dust settled from Russia's aggressive airstrikes, launching nearly 500 drones and over 40 missiles across Ukrainian cities, tragically killing civilians, including a 12-year-old girl, Ukraine decided it could no longer remain passive. In retaliation, on September 29, Ukraine unleashed its fury on Belgorod, a city deeply entrenched in Russian territory. But what motivated this fierce response? Imagine the suspense in the air as the evening sky illuminated from the explosions rocking Belgorod. The air was thick with smoke, the acrid scent of burning fuel and twisted metal hung heavily, and chaos erupted when the strikes hit two critical energy facilities, a thermal power station and an electrical substation. The impact was staggering, sending shockwaves through a city that hadn't anticipated such wrath. With power and water supply disrupted, Belgorod's silence was shattered by sirens blaring, as hospitals scrambled to operate on generators. As rumors swirled, a critical question arose: what had pushed Ukraine to strike so violently? Earlier that day, Russia's relentless assault on Ukraine had crossed a line, and Ukraine couldn't sit idle any longer. It was as if a drumroll echoed the warning delivered by President Volodymyr Zelensky just hours prior, threatening retaliation for the ongoing bombardment. The firestorm that ensued wasn't random, it was a calculated message sent to Vladimir Putin: if you attack us, prepare for even fiercer retribution. But why use M31 missiles? A weapon of unparalleled destruction capable of reaching deep into Russia, against a border city? Now, as reports confirmed the striking success of Ukraine's counters, Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesman, was left scrambling. Confronted with a barrage of questions surrounding the potential supply of Tomahawk missiles from the US to Ukraine, he seemed both incredulous and terrified. "Who's firing these missiles?" he demanded, anxiety gripping his words. However, his defensive posturing didn't change the reality: Ukraine had a new arsenal at its disposal, and Belgorod was just the beginning. As rumors of US support became more certain, the balance of power felt precarious. What Russia had underestimated was that Ukraine, backed by newfound military strength, could deliver fierce blows against its aggressor. As the fires burned in Belgorod, Russia was confronted with a harsh truth: its own strategies were beginning to crumble. What consequences would this have for the unfolding drama of this brutal conflict? The tension was palpable and the stakes had never felt higher. As the world bore witness to the realization of military might amidst a war born of aggression, what would the future hold for Ukraine? Would this fierce retaliation inspire further responses from the already cornered bear? Without a doubt, the conflict was at a tipping point, and as the smoke cleared in Belgorod, so too did the veil covering an international struggle for power that resonated far beyond the battlefield. In the heart of a tumultuous conflict, where the air grows heavy with the scent of smoke and the tension simmers beneath the surface, unexpected twists and turns unfold that shape the world stage. With Russia sticking to its 2025 strategy, their ground offensives increasingly falter. Meanwhile, the skies above Ukraine become a battleground as missiles and drones pour down like whispered threats. But as the sun dipped below the horizon in late September, Russia crossed a line that would ignite a fierce response. Russia unleashed a devastating airstrike on Kyiv, believing this would cripple Ukraine's resolve. However, they miscalculated. Instead of retreating in despair, Ukraine chose vengeance. With fierce determination, Ukraine retaliated against Belgorod, a city not just on the border, but now under siege. As reports spread on September 29, the audacity of Ukraine's strike became clear: key energy facilities went up in flames. Belgorod, now shrouded in darkness, would become the stage for Ukraine's righteous fury. Blackouts swept through the city, leaving hospitals and emergency services scrambling. The city's regional governor confirmed the chaos, acknowledging the enemy missiles that disrupted life, forcing citizens to cope with palpable fear. But as the world listened, a pivotal question arose: why was Russia admitting this defeat when they typically deny Ukraine's successes? The reason lay in the civilian toll. By portraying Ukraine as aggressors, Russia aimed to warp the narrative in a conflict they unleashed, a desperate attempt to cloak brutality with propaganda. The strikes on Belgorod marked a vital turning point. Geolocated footage revealed Ukraine's precision, as they targeted a vital power plant that supplied more than a third of the city's energy. Flames lit up the night, their fury immortalized in the smoke that spiraled skyward. This was no random act of violence, it was a message aimed squarely at Vladimir Putin: retaliate against our people, and we will retaliate with far greater force. Just hours before the retaliation, Russia had unleashed an extensive strike with over 40 missiles and nearly 500 drones assaulting cities across Ukraine, including Kyiv. The echoes of destruction reverberated through the streets, mourning the innocent lives lost. Among the dead was a 12-year-old girl, the human cost of warfare hanging heavy in the air. Amidst this chaotic backdrop, the U.S. had made a striking decision: it was preparing to send Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. This delivery hinted at a seismic shift, showing that America was ready to fortify Ukraine's ability to strike deep into Russia's heartland. A chilling realization dawned upon Russian leaders: this U-turn in support would only exacerbate their already precarious situation. As Belgorod burned, the emerging narrative became a clarion call for justice. Now, with Gripen fighter jets on their way, the battlefield was shifting in ways Russia never anticipated. Ukraine was poised to escalate its defense and defense dramatically, implementing strategies that could turn the tide in favor of those yearning for peace and safety. The stakes had never been higher. And soon the world would witness the full power of determined resistance. The question loomed: could Ukraine uphold its defensive stance while delivering a message of retribution that would echo through the corridors of power in Moscow? In a remarkable twist, the dynamics of the conflict began to change. While the F-16s weren't the magic solution, they offered vital options to Ukraine against Russia's overwhelming missile and drone onslaught. As these Western jets started arriving, Ukraine made pivotal strikes against Russian strongholds. This shift caught the attention of many, including Ukraine's Deputy Defense Minister, Lieutenant General Ivan Havriliak, who hinted at something even bigger coming. On September 29, shocking news broke. Sweden confirmed that its advanced Gripen fighter jets would soon be flying over Ukraine, a decree that left Vladimir Putin reeling. The Kyiv Post revealed that Havriliak, during an interview, confirmed the imminent arrival of these Swedish marvels. He didn't boast, instead, he spoke with a cautious air. When a BBC reporter pressed him on the specifics, asking when the jets would arrive and how many there would be, Havriliak cleverly sidestepped the details, saying, "When you see them soaring in our skies, you will understand." Curiosity bubbled as the reporter sought clarity. Were these the F-16s? The French Mirages? Or perhaps the Gripens? Havriliak's reluctance to divulge too much only raised the stakes. After all, if Russia learned the specifics, it could potentially thwart Ukraine's plan. The shroud of uncertainty amplified the anticipation around this new air power. But what does it mean for the ongoing conflict? Just hours before this announcement, Russia launched a massive assault on Ukrainian territory, employing nearly 500 drones and more than 40 missiles, striking various cities, including the capital, Kyiv. The havoc caused was immense. 4 lives were lost, including that of a 12-year-old girl, amidst the debris of ruined homes. Given this backdrop, the introduction of Gripens could mark a pivotal shift in the conflict's balance. Will these jets transform the battlefield, enabling Ukraine to strike with impunity? Or will they face Russian interception, altering the very fabric of this contentious war? As rumors swirl and expectations mount, one question lingers: how will Russia respond to this escalating threat as the new aircraft take to the skies? The air is charged with tension, as the world holds its breath. In recent developments, anticipation builds around Ukraine's potential acquisition of advanced fighter jets. As the Deputy Defense Minister of Ukraine, Havriliak, affirmed that new aircraft are expected soon, a BBC reporter pressed for specifics. Would Ukraine be receiving the F-16, the French-made Mirage, or perhaps the Swedish Gripen? The excitement in the air was palpable. Havriliak, while withholding precise details, hinted that the reporter's assumptions were largely correct. This subtle acknowledgement hinted that the Gripen could indeed be en route to Ukraine. Such speculation isn't without history. In 2024, Sweden first proposed sending Gripen fighters to Ukraine, but at that time, Ukraine politely declined, focusing instead on preparing to integrate the F-16 jets into their fleet. The decision to hold off on the Gripens wasn't about a lack of desire from Ukraine, but rather a strategic choice. With the new F-16 program demanding full attention, Ukraine chose to prioritize training pilots for the jets they were already set to receive. Sweden's former foreign minister, Tobias Billström, explained this rationale, stating that managing two distinct fighter jet systems simultaneously would be overwhelming. What needs addressing now is the shift in this strategy. With the F-16 preparations nearing completion, the door appears to be opening for the Gripens. Are these aircraft finally destined to bolster Ukraine's air capabilities? The question lingers as anticipation swells among defense analysts and military strategists. Having waited patiently, will Ukraine seize this opportunity? Combining the power of multiple airframes to enhance its defense strategies? Imagine the dynamic shift if both the F-16 and Gripen enter service. Could this twin capacity provide a decisive edge against the backdrop of an ongoing conflict? As the clock ticks, all eyes are on the skies, waiting for news that could reshape the aerial landscape above Ukraine. This development represents more than just a military upgrade, it symbolizes hope, resilience, and the unwavering determination of a nation facing formidable challenges. The Gripen's arrival could ignite a new chapter in Ukraine's ongoing fight for sovereignty. In a stunning turn of events, the ongoing conflict has taken a dramatic twist. After suffering numerous setbacks, Russia escalated its strategy, intensifying airstrikes on Ukraine. But as the dust settled from September's chaos, Ukraine struck back with a vengeance, turning the tables in a fierce display of resilience. Late in September, Russian forces launched a bold attack on Kyiv. Instead of capitulating, Ukraine unleashed its wrath, targeting Belgorod, a key border city in Russia. In a high-stakes operation on September 29, Ukraine deployed long-range weapons to strike at Belgorod's critical energy facilities, two infrastructures essential for the city's power supply. Darkness fell over Belgorod, as reports emerged of massive blackouts gripping the city. The regional governor, Vyacheslav Gladkov, quickly confirmed the devastation, blaming enemy missiles for the chaos. Hospitals and police stations were forced to rely on backup generators, as the people of Belgorod faced a desperate situation. The loss of power interfered with water delivery to countless residents, amplifying the impact of Ukraine's attack. But what prompted Ukraine to retaliate so fiercely? Just hours before, a relentless barrage of Russian missiles and drones had raided multiple regions in Ukraine, including the capital city. The onslaught lasted nearly 12 hours and resulted in tragic casualties, including the death of a young girl, and left many injured. The contrast was stark. Ukraine's precise strikes on Belgorod focused on military objectives, hitting a vital power station that served a significant portion of the city. Eyewitness accounts and video footage depicted fiery explosions and thick black smoke billowing into the sky, confirming Ukraine's success in the operation. Now the question arises, why would Russia confirm such a damaging strike? The answer rests in propaganda. By highlighting the suffering of civilians in Belgorod, Russia aimed to portray Ukraine as a merciless aggressor, trying to twist the narrative of the conflict to its advantage. Yet the international community saw this for what it was, a transparent attempt to distract from Russia's own indiscriminate attacks that had claimed countless civilian lives in Ukraine. As the aftermath of the Belgorod strike unfolded, Ukraine's leaders understood they had made a significant statement. They had sent a clear warning to Russia: retaliate against our cities, and we will respond with equal or greater force. This pattern of escalation brings us to an unexpected development. Ukraine, now equipped with F-16 fighters that had proven to be formidable in the skies, was in negotiations with European allies to bolster its air defense even further. Although initially hesitant to embrace the Swedish Gripen jets, recent discussions indicated a newfound interest. Ukraine's defense minister confirmed ongoing commitments to acquire more advanced aircraft to face the relentless threats. This strategic pivot highlights Ukraine's resilience and adaptability in a tumultuous battlefield while underscoring a larger truth: in the game of warfare, no outcome remains constant. As we move forward, the question looms: what will the next chapter in this unfolding saga bring? Only time will reveal whether this escalating conflict will result in victory or devastation. On September 26, reports surfaced that Russia had once again engaged in provocative maneuvers near NATO airspace. This time, tensions flared as 5 Russian fighter jets approached the borders of Lithuania. The formation included 3 MiG-31s, the same type sent into Estonia earlier that month, but this time they were accompanied by a Su-30 and a Su-35. It was a clear escalation of threats. However, Russia was cautious. It did not cross into Lithuanian airspace, likely due to stern warnings from Poland, which had threatened to shoot down any Russian jets that entered NATO territory. NATO confirmed this stance, indicating a united front against any such aggression. In response, NATO took action. The air policing mission in Lithuania deployed Gripen jets from Hungary to identify and escort the Russian fighters away from Lithuania's airspace. This operation highlighted the trust placed in the Swedish Gripen, implying they were fully capable of handling potential threats from Russia. If NATO was not confident in their capabilities, surely they would have deployed another aircraft. Now, this very aircraft, the Gripen, is set to bolster Ukraine's defenses. As the anticipation grows, questions abound regarding the specifics of what Ukraine can expect with this new addition to its arsenal. It remains uncertain how many Gripens will arrive and which variants will be delivered, but one thing is clear: Ukraine is preparing for heightened confrontation. As the situation unfolds, the stakes get higher. Will the addition of the Gripens turn the tide in Ukraine's fight for sovereignty? What measures will Russia take in retaliation? The uncertainty leaves both nations at a critical juncture, with geopolitical implications rippling far beyond their borders. Stay tuned as we dive deeper into the unfolding drama of this conflict, examining the strategic implications behind every move on the board. In a game where one wrong step could lead to disastrous consequences, all eyes are on Ukraine's next move. The clock is ticking, and tensions continue to rise. Will this new weapon change the balance of power? Only time will tell. In September, a crucial moment unfolded in Eastern Europe, as tensions escalated between Ukraine and Russia. Following a string of ineffective ground offensives, Russia intensified its airstrikes against Ukraine, unleashing a barrage of missiles and drones upon the nation. However, this time, Ukraine decided enough was enough. In a bold move, on September 29, Ukraine retaliated against a relentless aerial assault that had just placed Ukrainian lives at risk, striking the Russian city of Belgorod. This retaliation was swift and brutal, targeting 2 critical energy facilities, a thermal power station and an electrical substation, key infrastructures for the city's power supply. As a result, Belgorod was plunged into darkness, with widespread blackouts affecting residents when they least expected it. The devastation echoed through the city, leaving people without electricity and even water. Why did Ukraine choose to attack Belgorod? Just hours before, Russia had unleashed a merciless drone assault, bombing multiple Ukrainian cities, including the capital, Kyiv. This attack had tragically claimed the lives of innocent civilians, including a young girl. The sheer terror of the Russian missiles seemed unending, but Ukraine's counterattack aimed to send a clear message: retaliate, and restitution would come from the other side. Eyewitness reports and geolocated footage revealed the impact of Ukraine's strikes. Smoke roared into the sky as flames engulfed the TET's 4 facility, which had provided vital energy to a substantial portion of Belgorod. The nature of the attack reflected a strategic choice. This was no random act of destruction. Rather, it was a calculated response to the brutality Ukraine had faced. Blackouts weren't just an inconvenience, they were a display of Ukraine's newfound resolve. But here's the twist: despite the magnitude of the attack, Russia initially hesitated to confirm the damage. Why? It seemed the loss was too significant to downplay. As reports emerged that Belgorod was without power, concern for Russian civilians pushed the narrative of victimhood to the forefront. Even without civilian casualties reported, the lack of essential services painted a picture of chaos. It was a powerful tactic from the Kremlin, attempting to depict Ukraine as the aggressor in a conflict that had been ignited by their own actions. What more could Ukraine do to reclaim its narrative amidst such turmoil? With the world watching, it became clear that this conflict had evolved far beyond airstrikes and retaliation. It had become a war of perceptions, where each side utilized civilian suffering as a prop in their narratives. Could Ukraine seize the upper hand in reshaping the story of their resilience? As darkness loomed in Belgorod, what strategic moves lay ahead for Ukraine? Would they strike again, and could they start to turn the tide in a conflict that many had feared would drag on indefinitely? The answer remains shrouded in uncertainty, but one thing is clear: the fire has been ignited, and both nations are poised for the next round in this relentless struggle. The air war in Eastern Europe has escalated dramatically, with Ukraine adapting to the evolving landscape of conflict. Despite the intensity of Russian airstrikes, Ukraine's resolve remains unbroken. In a remarkable turn of events, Ukraine decided enough was enough as Russian forces launched a series of devastating attacks on September 28, 2025, targeting critical urban areas, including the capital city, Kyiv. The horrific assault involved almost 500 drones and over 40 missiles, resulting in casualties and widespread destruction. But just when it seemed like Russia had the upper hand, Ukraine retaliated with a fierce strike that left one of Russia's border cities, Belgorod, in chaos. Ukrainian forces unleashed long-range weapons, aiming for key energy infrastructures critical to that city's livelihood. The strike was no random act, it was a clear message: if Russia intended to inflict pain, Ukraine was more than capable of hitting back even harder. Reports confirm that major energy facilities were left in ruins, plunging Belgorod into darkness and disrupting services for countless civilians. What type of weaponry did Ukraine utilize to achieve such impactful results? The answer lies in a revelation that changes the game entirely: the advanced Gripen fighter jets that are now in play. These aircraft, equipped for all sorts of NATO-compatible munitions, have the potential to flip the balance of power. With the ability to deploy missiles like the AIM-9 or Mark 82 bombs, the Gripen could deliver precision strikes with incredible speed. Speaking of speed, these jets can reach a stunning Mach 1.8. Zipping through the sky at nearly 2,200 kilometers per hour. Yet, the Gripen isn't just about speed and firepower. Its onboard AI capabilities elevate it into a realm of cutting-edge technology, making it more than just a fighter jet. The cockpit features a wide-area display that enhances situational awareness, allowing for seamless weapon deployment and coordination with other units. This technological advancement means Ukraine's Air Force is not only engaging in dogfights but is reconfiguring itself to tackle ground threats with precision. However, what of Russia's response? In the aftermath of Ukraine's retaliatory strike, Russian officials were quick to label Ukraine's action as terrorism, a tactic aimed at undermining Ukraine's justified defense. But, can a nation that strikes indiscriminately and targets civilian infrastructure truly accuse another of terrorism? Statistics show that Russia's campaign has resulted in substantial civilian casualties and suffering, raising questions about moral equivalencies. As the tension escalates, one must ponder the future. How will Ukraine continue to bear the weight of Russian aggression? Will these advanced Gripens shift the tide in their favor? With both sides poised for further conflict, the stakes grow higher, and the world watches closely. In this ongoing saga, the real question remains: when will the cycle of retribution end, and who will ultimately emerge victorious in this bitter struggle? In a world where battles are fought not only with brute force but also with strategic advancements and technology, the stage is set for a dramatic showdown. Russia has firmly committed to a relentless strategy for 2025, desperately trying to regain ground as its previous offensives prove increasingly futile. With airstrikes being unleashed more ferociously than ever, the conflict escalated dramatically when Russia targeted Kyiv. This act of aggression ignited a fierce response from Ukraine, turning the tide in the ongoing conflict with a brutal retaliatory strike aimed at one of Russia's border cities. On September 29, Ukraine sent a powerful message to its adversary as it struck Belgorod, a city that had become a symbol of Russia's aggression. This attack wasn't just a random act, it was revenge, swift, ruthless, and calculated. Utilizing long-range weapons, Ukraine hit critical energy facilities in Belgorod, including a thermal power station vital for keeping the city electrified. The ramifications were immediate and devastating. Reports surfaced of extensive blackouts across various regions of the city, substantially affecting the daily lives of its citizens, who suddenly found themselves grappling with power shortages and restricted access to water. As reports confirmed the attack from multiple sources, including the Belgorod regional governor, the narrative began to shift. Rather than deny the effectiveness of Ukraine's strike, something Russia often does, they acknowledged it, seizing the chance to label Ukraine's response as acts of terror. Why the contradiction? It's simple, the blowback hurt Russian civilians. In a bid to shape the narrative, Russia aimed to portray Ukraine's defensive measures as terroristic on their part. Could it be that the intentions behind this narrative were merely propaganda? As details emerged from credible outlets like the Kyiv Post and Euromaidan Press, it became clear that Ukraine's focused attack on military infrastructure constituted legitimate defense. Notably, the facility struck, TETs-4, had been crucial for power generation in Belgorod, catering to over a third of the city's energy needs. This was not merely an act of vengeance but a strategic move to dismantle the very resources powering Russian aggression. Amidst the chaos, video footage emerged, capturing the moment as flames engulfed the facility and smoke billowed into the air, stark reminders of the destruction wrought. The successful operation was confirmed by observing the fallout, blackouts, damage reports, and the impact felt across Belgorod, illustrating how deeply Ukraine's strike resonated. But this was not an isolated incident driven purely by anger. It was a response to Russian actions just hours before, which saw tirelessly executed drone and missile strikes on Ukraine, resulting in civilian casualties and significant destruction. Could it be that the events of September 28 had pushed Ukraine to retaliate with unprecedented force? Indeed, Russia's relentless aerial assaults, utilizing advanced missiles and drones, had claimed lives, including that of a child, shedding light on the dire consequences of such conflict. With every act of aggression, the line between military and civilian life continues to blur, and as Ukraine asserts itself, the more vulnerable Russia becomes. Each strike, each counterstrike, is a thread in the larger narrative of survival and sovereignty, underscoring the immense stakes at play. In the unfolding story of this conflict, dramatic turns and shocking revelations lie ahead. What strategies will come next, and how will Ukraine respond to the ongoing threat? The stage is set for a new chapter, one filled with uncertainty yet brimming with the promise of resilience and resistance. As the echoes of these powerful confrontations linger in the air, only time will unfold the ultimate outcome. Imagine the bitter sting of inconsistency haunting the air like a relentless fog, where the U.S. falters at best in its promises. Picture the Gripen soaring not just as a machine, but as a monument to a nation's bold independence against the odds. It whispers hope to Ukraine, poised to become a formidable shield in its quest for freedom. And now, as we dive deeper, unfold the thrilling possibilities of what this jet can unleash on the battlefield. Will Ukraine's skies transform from despair to dominance? Feel the electric pulse of anticipation coursing through the air. We've glimpsed the Gripen's raw power from a distance, its specks glowing like a promise in the dark. But strip away the numbers, what happens when Ukraine pilots this beast into the heart of Russia? The cockpit hums with clarity, flooding the pilot's senses with a torrent of data, as if the world itself bends to reveal its secrets. That intelligence isn't flashy, it's a lifeline in the chaos of war. Experts like military analyst Wes O'Donnell paint a vivid picture of the Gripen's edge, hinting it could outwit even the formidable F-35 in a fierce aerial clash back in March 2025. No longer about sheer speed or missile hordes alone, the Gripen dazzles with something sharper. As O'Donnell captures it, the tribe that spots the threats first, swaps intel like lightning, and reacts in a heartbeat claims the crown. In a realm where seconds stretch like eternal voids before destruction, fluid sharing is the throne. And the Gripen? It reigns supreme with detectors that pierce the veil, AI that thinks ahead, and bonds that weave Ukraine's defenses into an unstoppable net. When the ground-shaking roar of approaching threats echoes, the Gripen darts with ferocious agility, evading drones that buzz like angry hornets. Its sleek form slices through the sky, locking onto perilous missiles poised to devastate. What a rush to witness it dismantle them one by one, metal screaming as it tears apart. But it doesn't fly solo. The jet whispers vital sightings to allies, amplifying their might and turning the tide in a symphonic surge. Offensively, it glides with predatory grace, dodging enemy missiles that hiss through the heavens. Its multi-role design transforms it into a jack-of-all-trades, equally ruthless, hurling fury at ground bases or sparring with foe aircraft in dizzying dogfights. Breathe in the acrid smoke of burning targets, feel the rumble beneath as strikes connect. And if Ukraine unleashes a whirlwind of close-quarters combat against Russian aces, the Gripen stands ready, a sleek predator in the fray. Yet, this marvel harbors a twist that could humiliate the oppressors. It's astoundingly affordable for a nation bleeding funds. Clocking in at roughly $4,000 per flying hour, as noted by United 24, it's like a bargain weapon slashing the cost barrier. Compared to pricier rivals, this means Ukraine stretches every resource, every dollar, into prolonged skies of victory. Envision the crunch of boots on desolate runways, the fate of missed opportunities if funds drain too soon. But with Gripen, the path clears for relentless pressure, outlasting the enemy's weary grip. Can this affordable fury flip the script in Ukraine's grueling war of attrition, where economies collide as brutally as armies? The air thickens with tension, whispering of unforeseen advantages that could shatter Russian confidence. What hidden edge might surface next, twisting fates in the blinding glare? A new dawn over Belgorod in a world engulfed in chaos. The battle between Ukraine and Russia has reached a new chapter. September 2025 saw a pivotal moment. Russia, frustrated by the diminishing effectiveness of its ground offensives, upped its game, showering Ukraine with airstrikes. These strikes were intense. Missiles and drones gripped the skies over Ukrainian cities. The forceful assault culminated on the last days of September when Russia crossed a critical line. They struck at Kyiv. Yet, rather than yielding in despair, Ukraine made a fierce decision. The retaliation was swift and merciless, targeting the heart of one of Russia's key border cities, Belgorod. September 29 dawned with thunderous explosions echoing through the streets as Ukraine unleashed its offensive. The aftermath was catastrophic. Vast blackouts swept through the city, plunging its inhabitants into darkness. What transpired next was a strategic masterpiece. Ukraine tactically deployed long-range weapons to obliterate two vital energy facilities in Belgorod. One was a thermal power station, crucial for powering the city, while the other was an electrical substation essential for daily life. The strikes ignited an inferno, belching thick black smoke into the sky, painting a grim picture of a once bustling city now overshadowed by chaos. As reports surfaced from various news outlets, the reality of the strikes began to unfold. Belgorod was reeling from the impact. Vyacheslav Gladkov, the regional governor, confirmed the damage wrought by enemy missiles. His words, straining under the weight of fear, painted a stark picture of hospitals and police stations struggling to operate on backup generators. The taps ran dry for many as the water supply faltered due to the destruction inflicted on the city's infrastructure. But why was Russia so eager to announce the damage? In the shadows loomed a propaganda agenda. Russia had a vested interest in framing Ukraine's counterattack as an act of terror, a narrative to deflect attention from its own brutal assaults on Ukrainian civilians. Yet, strangely, no civilian casualties emerged from this assault, something highly unusual in warfare. With a keen eye to maintain control of the narrative, Russian officials used this event to dramatize Ukraine's actions, intending to sway opinion and portray themselves as the victims. But the truth cannot be concealed. Ukraine's precise strikes contrasted sharply with Russia's indiscriminate assault, marked by civilian loss. As pictures of fires and damage circulated, the world began to see the stark differentials in tactics. In Belgorod, the targeted infrastructure represented significant military utility, not indiscriminate hatred. Here arose a pivotal question: if Ukraine focused on military targets while minimizing civilian risk, who truly held the moral high ground? Then came the revelation, a suggestion that the Ukrainian military had employed a rare but formidable weapon not utilized in ages. This scene was not a mere raid but a definitive statement. The underlying message was clear: for every strike on Ukrainian soil, repercussions would resound across the border, echoing through Russian cities. Days before this decisive act, Putin unleashed a fierce barrage in Ukraine, a sustained assault involving nearly 500 drones and a volley of missiles. The casualties were heartbreaking. Among the fallen was a 12-year-old girl. Reports noted extensive damage across a multitude of Ukrainian regions, further showcasing the brutal reality of the ongoing war. Yet, amid this turmoil, a flicker of hope glimmered. With every action, Ukraine sharpened its military focus. With the Gripen jets' capability, they could engage Russia's air forces more efficiently, saving precious resources. The jets' operational cost was significantly lower than its counterparts, giving Ukraine an edge in this exhausting war of attrition. But the emotional toll ran deep. As the skies crackled with explosions and lives plummeted into despair, the heart of the conflict outstripped mere tactics. It was about resolve, survival, and an undying spirit. This was not merely a clash of arms but a defining struggle for existence. With the shadow of conflict looming overhead, the question remains: can Ukraine withstand the relentless tide of aggression, or will it emerge from the darkness, stronger than ever? The answer lies in the resilience of its people and the unwavering commitment to reclaim what was lost. In this battle for survival, the stakes have never been higher, and both nations are poised on the precipice of a future forged in fire and sacrifice. In a world fraught with conflict, one nation stands against the odds, showcasing an unwavering resolve. Following a series of ineffective ground offensives, Russia intensified its campaign against Ukraine with unprecedented airstrikes involving missiles and drones. But as we approached the end of September, Russia crossed a line. It boldly attacked Kyiv, prompting an explosive reaction from Ukraine, a retaliation that would shake the very foundations of one of Russia's border cities. On September 29, reports confirmed that Ukraine targeted Belgorod, inflicting severe damage by striking two critical energy facilities, a thermal power station and an electrical substation. The results were catastrophic. Belgorod plunged into darkness, leaving its citizens grappling with widespread blackouts. The governor of Belgorod, Vyacheslav Gladkov, was quick to address the impact of this enemy missile attack, emphasizing that hospitals and police stations were forced to rely on backup generators. Water supply deliveries dwindled, causing upheaval among the civilian population, highlighting the stark change in their daily lives following Ukraine's decisive strike. Why is this significant? Russia's reaction revealed their struggle to maintain a narrative amid the chaos. They often dismiss Ukrainian successes using excuses about drone debris, but in this case, they couldn't hide the truth. With civilian services crippled, Russia confirmed Ukraine's offensive to depict them as the true aggressors in a conflict initiated by their own actions. It's a blatant play for sympathy. Attempting to label Ukraine's desperate defense as terrorism, despite the steel of their own many attacks on civilians. But what did Ukraine specifically strike? Footage indicated at least 5 direct hits on the TET's-4 facility, a vital component for electricity generation, responsible for over 1/3 of Belgorod's energy needs. This wasn't just a mere action, it was a calculated move to cripple Russian resources. Videos surfaced, showcasing plumes of ominous black smoke billowing from the facility. Fire raged inside, confirming the effectiveness of the Ukrainian attack. In the aftermath, reports of power outages circulated, and suddenly, the louder echo of desperation filled the air in Belgorod. It was a retaliation steeped in strategy, birthed from Russia's relentless barrage of drone and missile strikes against Ukraine mere hours before. The air was electric after reports of Russia's assault, which targeted cities across Ukraine, inflicting casualties and wreaking havoc. The Kyiv Independent highlights the brutal reality of that strike, where children, innocents caught amid the rubble, faced the true specter of war. "I'll warn them," declared Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky, signaling a furious response to Russia's provocations. When conflict rediscovers its balance, every strike retaliates with a firestorm of its own. This story unfolds like a gripping thriller, where each act is marked by desperation and resilience. Ukraine, against all odds, finds ways to strike back hard. Armed with creativity and a focus on precision, they envelop their border areas with tactical unpredictability. Using modern tools like the Gripen jet, designed for unconventional takeoff and landing, giving Ukraine a significant strategic edge. With every successful maneuver, Ukraine tells the tale of overcoming despair, birthing a narrative where even the underdog can deliver the most profound blows. The arrival of this jet symbolizes more than just aerial prowess, it embodies an unyielding spirit. As Ukraine steadily transforms the landscape of modern warfare, the stakes become higher and the lines between aggressor and defender blur. How long before this narrative turns again? The tension builds, and with it, the anticipation of what may come next. On September 29, something unexpected happened on the battlefield. Ukraine's Unmanned Systems Forces commander revealed footage of a remarkable strike. The 1st Battalion of Kyiv This, known as the Predators of the Heights, executed a successful attack that seemed improbable. This battalion, a key component of Ukraine's 59th Separate Assault Brigade, managed to take down a significant Russian asset, an Mi-8 helicopter. How did they accomplish this with a weapon costing only $500? The answer is intriguing. Knowing the Mi-8 is essential in understanding why it was such a prime target. Though often labeled a gunship, this helicopter is a versatile powerhouse. According to the Czech Republic's Ministry of Defense, Russian Mi-8s serve multiple purposes on the battlefield, showcasing their adaptability like few others. Designed with a 5-blade main rotor and a 3-blade tail rotor, it's one of the most utilized military helicopters worldwide. The Mi-8's strengths stand out, making it one of the rare successes among Russia's aerial platforms. Currently, these helicopters operate in 49 countries, prized for their unmatched versatility. Primarily, they transport troops equipped with advanced navigation systems for safe operation day or night, even in rough weather. Some variants even feature a VIP passenger hold, showcasing its role in moving high-ranking officials amidst conflict. Though a Soviet-era aircraft among other outdated military equipment, the Mi-8 remains relevant. With a cruise speed of around 200 km per hour, approximately 124 miles, the chopper can carry 24 personnel or 4,000 kilograms, over 8,800 pounds, of cargo. Its design clearly reflects its purpose for heavy lifting. But the real question looms, what made this attack not just another day of warfare? What did Ukraine know that they could strike a crucial target like this? As we dive deeper into the story, prepare for a revelation that could change everything. The Mi-8 helicopter is a versatile aircraft that combines cargo capabilities with formidable firepower. With a cruising speed of around 200 km per hour, or about 124 miles, it can carry up to 24 people or load a hefty 4,000 kilograms of cargo. This capacity allows it to play a vital role in logistical operations, but its true potential lies in its combat abilities. At first glance, one might consider the Mi-8 a simple transport chopper, yet that perspective oversimplifies its true capabilities. This aircraft can swiftly transform into a gunship, thanks to the strategic design features highlighted by military analysts. Its interior boasts several windows, providing space for soldiers on board to utilize an arsenal of personal weapons, allowing them to fend off threats while remaining airborne. Imagine a hail of machine gun fire raining down from the sides of this bulky chopper, keeping any potential threats at bay. However, the capacity for chaos doesn't stop there. The Mi-8 is equipped with the option for wing-mounted armaments, establishing its reputation as both a cargo carrier and an effective gunship. Depending on the mission, it can be outfitted with either a pair of 7.62mm machine guns or a single, more powerful 12.7mm gun. When tasked with ground assaults, the Mi-8 can unleash devastating firepower by carrying up to 6 at 2x or at 3 anti-tank guided missiles, or even loading it with a staggering total of 96 rockets from its 657mm rocket pods. Additionally, it can drop 250 and 500 kilogram bombs or deploy 23mm gun pods, making it a formidable force capable of inflicting significant damage on enemy ground targets. The versatility in ammunition types, including high explosive fragmentation and incendiary rounds, means that the Mi-8 remains a relevant and potent contender in the skies, even in modern warfare. The helicopter's dual role as both a transport and combat vehicle is a reminder of how, despite age, it can still wreak havoc on the battlefield, posing serious threats to any adversaries who underestimate its capabilities. But wait, what if I told you that this aircraft, while fearsome, isn't even the most significant aerial threat in today's combat scenarios? Let's dive deeper into what makes modern warfare a volatile arena. Did Russia's mighty Mi-8 helicopter just meet its fiery end in the skies above Ukraine? Could a simple drone have brought down such a beast? Picture the roar of engines drowning out distant thunder, the acrid stench of burning fuel hanging in the air, and the cold sweat on pilots' skin as alarms blare. In our last glimpse, we saw how this outdated chopper packs a punch despite its years, loaded with weapons from cannons to rockets, threatening ground targets even while carting troops. But Ukraine had other plans, turning the tide with relentless ingenuity. What hidden weapon did Ukraine unleash to smash Russia's aerial terror? A cheap drone pulsing toward doom? Ukraine knew the Mi-8 wasn't built for dogfights against sleek jets. Yet, its sheer bulk and cargo capacity made it a nightmare for defenders. Imagine hauling soldiers into hostile zones or unleashing a barrage of munitions on unsuspecting villages. That's the Mi-8's brutal game. Even without perfection, it loomed as a constant danger. Removing it from the battlefield was key. And Ukraine did just that on September 29. The Kyiv Post spills the details. Ukraine's famed FPV drone struck down the gunship. No hyped-up claim here, raw footage from Robert Brovdy, commander of Ukraine's unmanned systems forces, proves it. Nicknamed Madyar, he dropped Telegram posts confirming the kill. The first clip, a quick 30 seconds, catches the carnage from afar. Shot by another Ukrainian drone, it shows the chopper erupting in a massive fireball after impact. Flames licked the air, smoke twisting like serpents, while the craft spun earthward in a gut-wrenching plunge. Not clear what hit it, but the destruction screamed victory. Skeptics might scoff at the haze. Why not a missile? Madyar addressed that in his second post, correcting his first to identify the target as a Mi-8. This extended minute-long video reveals everything, the drone's eye view as it streaks toward annihilation. Sensory overload, the buzz of rotors echoing, the jolt of explosion vibrating through the frame, tasting metallic victory. It switches to the FPV perspective at the 10-second mark. Hurtling through windy currents, this isn't just any feed. It's the weapon itself, recording its deadly path. Russia must have felt the sting, their chopper, a symbol of dominance, reduced to ashes. But what twist hid in this strike? Did it expose Russia's Achilles heel, or was there more revenge brewing just hours before? Hours earlier, Russia had pummeled Ukraine with drones and missiles, mirroring their brutal tactics. Was this payback for Belgorod, sending a message straight to Putin? Could Ukraine's drone have pointed to a bigger arsenal awakening? Ukraine targeted the Mi-8 not randomly, it was retaliation for Russia's September 28 barrage. Nearly 500 drones and over 40 missiles rained terror for 12 hours, slaughtering at least 4, wounding 70. Among the dead, a 12-year-old girl, her life extinguished in the chaos. Reports from the Kyiv Independent detail the havoc. A 5-story building in Kyiv crumbled, 7 districts scarred. Russia launched from Olynya airfield and angles, using bombers like the MQ-9 Reaper or Caliber missiles, no mercy shown. The emotional wound lingered. Ukrainian civilians smelled the terror that night, the sharp tang of explosives, the tremor underfoot from blasts. Why did Ukraine strike the power plant in Belgorod? To echo Russia's indiscriminate violence, but precisely, sparing lives. No children harmed, just critical infrastructure felled. Thick black plumes choked the sky over TET's 4, fires raging as turbines buckled and fuel systems ignited. Residents clutched flashlights, feeling icy water trickle sparingly. Russia's propaganda machine churned, crying terrorism. But they confirmed the blackouts themselves, with Governor Vyacheslav Gladkov moaning over hospitals on generators. Hypocritical? Absolutely. Russia's war has claimed 13,883 lives per UN stats, 726 kids dead, another blow like this. Ukraine's precision contrasted sharply, hitting targets without civilian blood. Zelensky's warning the day before rang true, threatened blackouts, face fiercer response. This gunship kill amplified the threat. What secret weapon fueled this? Was it Ukrainian tech alone, or Allied boosts brewing? In the fading light, tension simmered, hope flickered, but danger lurked. Could this spark a chain reaction across borders, humiliating Russia's air might? Stay tuned for the storm ahead, as empires wobble on the edge. What if drones aren't the real game-changer here? In the previous part, we uncovered how Ukraine struck back at Russia after a brutal drone and missile attack on its cities, targeting critical energy facilities in Belgorod. This led to massive blackouts and highlighted the hypocrisy in Russia's propaganda. No civilians died, but the message was clear: Ukraine won't be bullied quietly. Can you imagine watching a tiny, buzzing killer zero in on a Russian war machine from its own eyes? Picture the cockpit view of approaching doom, as Ukraine proves once more that size doesn't matter in this deadly dance. As September 29 unfolded, a dramatic new video emerged, not from a distant observer drone, but straight from the jaws of the action. This wasn't staged footage. It was raw, heart-pounding evidence of Ukraine's precision revenge. The clip dives into the world of the FPV drone, that first-person flight where you feel every twist and turn. The onboard camera captures the rush, wind whistling against the lens, the hum of motors vibrating through the frame like a deadly heartbeat. Ahead, the horizon sharpens into the silhouette of Russia's Mi-8 helicopter, a hulking beast of metal and menace. Seconds stretch into eternity. Does the pilot spot the incoming threat? Or is he too focused on the chaos below? At the 10-second mark, the chopper looms large, its rotors churning the air with a thunderous whoosh, a tactile roar that you can almost feel rattling your bones. Ukraine's FPV drone pivots gracefully, aligning for the strike. It edges closer, within arm's reach now, the pressure building like a storm about to burst. Contact is imminent. Did the Russian crew react? It hardly matters. The drone collides, boom. The screen blinks. Detonation confirmed. Chopper crashes. The video switches back to wider-angle footage, revealing more horror. Flames lick the wreckage, a searing glow that smells of burnt fuel and scorched earth. Smoke billows in thick, choking plumes, turning the sky gray and acrid. Another Ukrainian drone swoops in for the kill shot, showing the Mi-8 as a twisted heap of defeat. No escape. Russia loses one of its prized helicopters, to a single FPV strike? Impossible, or is it? Questions swirl: how did this puny device topple such a giant? Welcome to the Shrike 10, Ukraine's secret weapon, a mere 10-inch marvel packed with fury. Armed with a PG-7M warhead, it explodes with high-explosive anti-tank power, piercing armor that protects against far mightier foes. Repurposed from standard rockets, this heat's warhead shreds through the Mi-8 like paper. Sensory overload hits, the crack of impact, the heat wave washing over imagined skin, the metallic tang of torn steel. Victory roars through the air, a symphony of destruction. Ukraine repurposed this beast for the task, proving on September 29 that a repurposed anti-tank rocket can flatten a war chopper. Triumph pulses through the veins, snippets of confirmation flood in, debates rage, but facts speak louder. Russia's own sources admit the loss, a brutal humiliation in the skies. But what if this is just the start? Could Ukraine's arsenal unleash more such shocks, turning the tide with unexpected vengeance we never foresaw? Stay tuned as the war's shadows deepen, revealing cracks in Russia's armor that might shatter it all. as the flames licked high into the Belgorod sky, marking Ukraine's fiery payback against Russia's relentless drone assaults, a shocking new frontline erupted. Imagine the acrid stink of charred circuits, the deafening booms echoing through twilight as Ukraine turned the tables in a brutal aerial duel. How did a tiny drone bring down a beast of the skies? Twist: Russia denies the carnage, but eyewitness flames expose the truth. A world away, on September 29, Ukraine unleashed a precision strike that rocked the war. Defense blog reveals it as the second confirmed takedown of a Russian Mi-8 helicopter using an FPV drone. Why is this such a rare feat? FPV drones, guided by raw video feeds from afar, have shredded tanks and supply lines across battlefields. They buzz with deadly intent. But nailing a speeding aerial target? That's a nightmare puzzle of split-second chaos. High speeds whirl unpredictably. Narrow windows snap shut like traps. The drone operator must carve through that storm with hawk-like focus, spotting the Mi-8 glinting on the horizon one heartbeat, slamming in for the kill the next. Feel the sweat on your palms, the thrumming engines vibrating your bones. How can a small machine outmaneuver such a monster? Twist: Ukraine did it, proving their precision against Russia's clumsy might. Smoke billows thick as ragtag groups evacuate the wounded, but the real blow lingers. What horror hides behind Russia's denial? Ukraine's strike scorched more than metal. Defense blog confirms the loss of lives amid the inferno. A fireball erupted, engulfing the gunship. Out of 5 crew aboard, 3 perished on impact. The survivors bore grievous burns, their skin blistering under singed uniforms, battling agony through critical hours. The pilot? Defiant tales claim he escaped unscathed. Yet, flames whispered the truth of incinerated dreams. Russia's puppets chafe at Ukraine's humiliation. Did they spin lies to shield their egos? Opponent humiliation, their bold denials crumble faster than the wreckage. Clandestine whispers from the trenches, Russia tried to bury the story in spin. The Voivode broadcast's telegram spread deceit, chanting everything's fine with the crew. But charred remnants scream louder. What twisted cover-up festers beneath the surface? Unexpected turns await as the skies reignited vengeance spills secrets even Ukraine fears. The air reeks of smoke and deceit, drones humming low in the night. Will this aerial scar bleed into Russia's next reckless sortie? In the heart of conflict, a fierce battle for survival unfolds. Recent developments reveal just how fiercely the tides can turn in war. Ukraine, barely recovering from relentless aerial assaults, musters its forces to retaliate against its aggressor, Russia. On September 29, Ukraine launched a strategic strike, targeting Belgorod, a border city that had long taken for granted its security. But what compels a nation to act in such a decisive manner? Imagine the chilling sound of missiles slicing through the air, the ominous roar of drones overhead, and the palpable tension as the people of Belgorod, once complacent, brace for impact. This was not just another skirmish, this was revenge for a brutal drone assault that left devastation in several Ukrainian cities, claiming lives, including that of a 12-year-old girl. The message from Ukraine was clear: if Russians strike Ukrainian soil, they will face the payback they least expect. As Belgorod's vital power infrastructure crumbled under the precision of Ukraine's long-range weaponry, the city erupted in chaos. Smoke billowed into the sky, and lives were turned upside down in an instant. Hospitals scrambled for backup generators. Water supplies dwindled as residents remained in darkness, grappling with the aftermath of the strikes. Russia's own officials confirmed the disconnect, the airwaves buzzed with panic as civilians suffered. Could this be the moment that changes everything? While Russia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs spun a narrative of terror, lambasting Ukraine for its actions, it couldn't mask the impact of its own earlier attacks, a striking contradiction. The Kremlin's propaganda machine worked overtime, painting Ukraine as the villain. Despite the grim reality, civilians were suffering on both sides, but one party seemed willing to absorb the costs of warfare with greater restraint. Further complicating the picture, Ukraine had unleashed a newer weapon, the Shrike 10 drone, significantly less expensive yet deadly effective. The recent strike was not merely about vengeance, it was also a calculated shift in warfare strategy. Where Ukraine once spent thousands, now it could achieve remarkable returns with a fraction of the cost. The notion that a $500 drone could so profoundly disrupt the Russian military's operations, destroying assets worth millions, turned the conventional wisdom on its head. But could Ukraine's ingenuity and resilience withstand the inevitable retaliation? With days of fighting ahead, how would these events reshape the course of the conflict? Would this newfound strength galvanize Ukraine's resolve further, or merely provoke a more vicious response from an enraged adversary? As tension spirals, only one thing is certain: the struggle for dominance continues, with lives hanging in the balance. In September, Ukraine achieved a stunning victory. The country managed to dismantle a Russian Mi-8 helicopter, valued at around $10 million, using a remarkably inexpensive device known as the Shrike-10 drone, which costs a mere $500. The sheer disparity in costs, $20,000 worth of Ukrainian drone firepower against a helicopter that was once a formidable Soviet air weapon, cut deep into Russia's military pride. This astonishing return on investment sends a harsh message to Russia. Instead of cushioning their defeat by claiming expensive weapons were lost, Russia had to grapple with the embarrassing fact that one of its most prized aerial assets fell to a drone assembled with minimal materials. To add insult to injury, it remains uncertain whether the Mi-8 was even armed at the time of the strike. Reports suggested that the helicopter was ambushed before it had a chance to react, leaving the pilot defenseless as the simple yet effective drone swiftly approached. If the information from Defense Blog is accurate, this operation didn't just signify a financial loss for Russia. It also led to tragic casualties. 3 crew members reportedly lost their lives, while 2 others were critically injured. The human toll, alongside the monetary cost, means that Russia is now facing a dual challenge: a depleted military asset coupled with diminished battlefield effectiveness. However, while this extraordinary strike is emblematic of Ukraine's innovative tactics, it does not dramatically alter the overall course of the war. Reports suggest that the downing of this helicopter occurred in eastern Ukraine, an area integral to Russia's strategic ambitions. Even so, it highlights a critical turning point in how Ukraine leverages cost-effective measures to inflict serious damage on the Russian military operations. As the dust settles from this event, we must ask, what does this victory mean for the future of the conflict? Has Ukraine found a blueprint for success that will turn the tide in its favor? The stakes are high as both sides grapple with the evolving landscape of warfare, filled with ingenious tactics, technological innovation, and a relentless quest for dominance in the skies. The next move could change everything. Imagine the shock rippling through the war zone when Ukraine's daring strike on Belgorod plunged the border city into darkness, sparking a fierce cycle of retaliation. What made this counterattack even more astonishing? Reports hint at a weapon Ukraine hadn't used freely in months, a tool that turned the tables on Russia's aerial dominance, leaving their costly machines burning. Have you ever wondered how a cheap Ukrainian drone could humiliate Russia's hulking war machines, slicing through millions in defense budgets like a knife through butter? The destruction of a single Mi-8 helicopter might seem minor on the surface, but it exposes Russia's glaring vulnerability to Ukraine's clever, budget-friendly tactics. Feel the tension in the air as that $10 million asset spirals into oblivion, its engines roaring in vain against swarms of flying cheap invaders. Yet, beyond the immediate loss, this incident screams a bigger truth. Ukraine spends just $500 on one of these devastating darts, reaping massive chaos for Russia's lavish investments. Can you picture the stark reality? Russian troops, armed to the teeth, still scrambling for defenses as inexpensive threats buzz like angry wasps, unchallenged and unstoppable. The heart of Ukraine's strategy lies in this asymmetry: small, smart risks overwhelming the giant. Why hasn't Putin cracked this code? Digs deeper, and it's a psychological slam. Expensive toys like Mi-8 choppers, those transports shuttling soldiers into battle, shouldn't crumble under $500 assaults. But they do, time and again. Touch the gritty dirt of eastern Ukraine where reports place the downing, sensing the distant rumble of impact. Smell the acrid smoke of jet fuel igniting, the metallic tang of twisted metal slicing through the chaos. Ukraine's ingenuity bites back, leaving Russia fumbling, unable to evolve. An unexpected twist emerges, one that flips the script. This isn't just about brute force, it's about outsmarting the odds. As The Economist pointed out in its September 2024 piece, helicopter crews have so-called safeguards, flares flickering uselessly against cunning drones, cannons blazing in desperate sprays. But evasive dives? Bursts of speed? They crumble when reflexes falter. In the gripping footage from September 29, witness the Mi-8 pilot's split-second panic, no time to dodge the inevitable. What truly stings is the arsenal's mismatch. Missiles and bombs slung under gunship wings? They might roar violently, but they're laughably unfit for swatting a $500 FPV drone. Machine guns could bark and spit rounds, if only the pilot's quick enough, a reflex honed in snapping moments. But Russia's defenses disintegrate, exposed as fragile facades. Is this the chink in the armor signaling downfall, or just the prelude? And here comes the revelation that humbles the aggressor further. Ukraine loses a drone in these clashes? So be it. Those $500 losses add up fast, allowing relentless replacements. A single Mi-8, though, takes out maybe 20,000 drones before bleeding dry. Clutch the tension. Does Russia truly grasp the futility? Despite warnings from analysts, they persist, their multi-million-dollar fleet downsized by relentless precision. Picture the emotional arc deepening. Frustration morphs into outrage for Russian crews, the constant drone hum a maddening buzz in their ears, vibrations from incoming threats rattling nerves. Ukraine's calm, calculated hits humiliate, transforming private setbacks into public spectacles. No easy fix in sight, just the cycle of defeat repeating. But wait, could this sealed chink evolve into a full breach? Is Ukraine edging closer to dominating the skies, turning Russia's strengths against them in breathtaking reversal? Stay tuned for how this drone reign of terror reshapes the front lines. Imagine the bitter chill of winter creeping in, on a cold snap that bites at the skin, as Vladimir Putin faces the harsh reality of his faltering war machine. Remember how Russia pinned its hopes on Mi-8 helicopters to counter Ukraine's relentless drone swarms? That gamble crumbled under the unfailing logic of asymmetric warfare. But why stop at choppers? Dive deeper into Ukraine's genius strikes that have bled Russia dry. What if I told you Ukraine is crushing billion-dollar foes with toys costing less than your morning coffee? Flash back to the sweltering heat of a battlefield encampment, the acrid smell of burnt-out electronics mixed with the sharp tang of gunpowder lingering in the air. You feel the rough scratch of sandpaper against calloused hands, fingers trembling from hours gripping a drone controller. In those tense moments of Operation Spiderweb, cheap quadcopters hummed overhead like angry wasps, buzzing relentlessly before unleashing tiny bombs. Each explosion was a cruel gut punch, a rhythmic boom echoing through the dusty plains, wiping out Russia's prized bombers in seconds. The air crackled with electric tension, a metallic bite on the tongue from the smoke. That brazen raid proved it, Ukraine could outsmart a superpower without breaking the bank. Now, circle back to the real punchline. If Ukraine loses a drone to an Mi-8 encounter, does it matter? That drone ran just $500. Another one lifts off in minutes. And another. And another. A single helicopter might dream of downing 20,000 before the tide turns. But who has time for fantasy? Ukraine wagers nothing and gains the world. It's pure brilliance, turning Russia's costly blades into sitting ducks. Echoes from Spiderweb amplify this truth. Sure, ops like that demanded sharp intel maneuvers. Vehicles crawled across hostile terrain, hearts pounding with every jolt over uneven ground. The distant whir of rotors faded into defeat. Yet those drones? Mere budget marvels, now legends. As experts at the Lowy Institute warn, Ukraine's budget bots inflict massive wounds. And look at September 29. It wasn't just a fluke victory. It showcased cheap warfare triumphing over riches. Ukraine innovates pain anew. Each hit siphons millions from Russia's coffers. By December 2024, U.S. estimates clocked Russia's bill over $200 billion. Think of the rivers of rubles draining since, eroding Putin's war vault. Losing an Mi-8 stings, sure. Personnel gone in a flash, but the true agony? Financial hemorrhaging that could end his reign. From failed summer pushes rises a winter abyss for the Kremlin king. Imagine the isolation, bitter winds howling like scornful laughter from those who outlasted him. Will Putin's empire starve on the vine? Or is Ukraine's shadow play just the start of his downfall? What ultimate price will sever the beast? The unfolding conflict between Ukraine and Russia has turned increasingly intense and grim. As Russia's military strategies grew ineffective, a wave of airstrikes escalated dramatically, striking Ukrainian territories, particularly Kyiv. However, in a shocking twist towards the end of September, Ukraine retaliated fiercely, delivering a blow to one of Russia's key border cities, Belgorod. On September 29, reports surfaced indicating that Ukraine, wielding long-range weaponry, struck vital energy facilities in Belgorod. The targets? A thermal power station and an electrical substation, both critical for the city's power supply. As these assaults unfolded, massive blackouts ensued, plunging Belgorod into darkness and chaos. The regional governor, Vyacheslav Gladkov, confirmed the attack, revealing that the city's hospitals and police stations were forced to rely on backup generators. Water supply was also severely disrupted, underscoring the attack's devastating impact on civilians. Ukraine's decisions were calculated, a response to Russia's relentless airstrikes, which had targeted Ukrainian cities, impacting many innocent lives. The irony of the situation was stark. Despite Russia's constant denouncement of Ukrainian forces, the very confirmation of the Belgorod attack suggested a narrative shift. Why was Russia acknowledging this? The answer lies in the strike's effect on Russian civilians. With no casualties reported among the populace, the Kremlin sought to portray Ukraine as the aggressor. Imagery of billowing smoke and flames engulfing the power plant painted a disturbing picture of the repercussions of this conflict. Footage emerged of multiple hits on TETS-4, the facility that had powered a significant portion of Belgorod. It was a well-chosen target, linked directly to the very resources propelling Russia's military ambitions. Meanwhile, as Ukraine's effective strategy unfolded, Russia's ability to conceal its losses from the public grew increasingly tenuous. But the stakes were monumental. Just hours before Ukraine launched its counterstrike, Russia had unleashed a massive drone and missile assault, claiming multiple civilian lives and causing severe destruction across Ukrainian cities, including a tragedy that took the life of a 12-year-old girl. The stark contrast between these assaults highlighted the differences in military ethics. Ukraine's strikes were strategic. They aimed to cripple Russia's war machinery without targeting civilians directly. What could drive Ukraine to such decisive retaliation? A stark warning had flashed across the international stage: Ukraine would not silently endure the onslaught. President Zelensky's message was clear: if Russia struck Ukrainian cities, Ukraine would respond with even greater resolve. As the dust settled in Belgorod, it became clear that Ukraine had struck far deeper than anticipated, targeting the very essence of Russia's war capabilities. This pivotal moment not only marked a tactical victory but also revealed a broader narrative. Ukraine's fight was not just for survival, it was for the liberation and dignity of its nation. The repercussions of this conflict continue to unfold, but one thing is certain: Ukraine has become a formidable force. The war's narrative is shifting, and the world is watching as it unfolds, with echoes of hope and resilience reverberating across Ukraine and beyond. As we uncovered earlier, Ukraine's daring drones have pierced Russian defenses hundreds of miles inside enemy territory. Cities like Volgograd, Saratov, Ryazan, and Krasnodar have trembled under the onslaught. Millions of tons of oil ignited in fiery spectacles, siphoning away the Kremlin's precious fuel reserves in mere moments. But imagine this. What if Russia's iron grip on its massive oil empire was finally cracking? Videos of these strikes slipped through despite strict bans. Forbidden footage flooded Telegram and other networks. Roaring explosions echoed. Thick, acrid smoke choked the air, its bitter stench lingering like a warning. Flames danced wildly, illuminating night skies with unnatural red glows. The tactile heat must have seared the skin of those too close, yet civilians shared these glimpses, defying orders in whispered acts of rebellion. At first, the blows seemed insignificant. Russia pumps over 11 million barrels daily at full throttle. One refinery in flames? A mere hiccup for such a powerhouse, right? Yet Vladimir Putin has long wielded this colossal fuel industry like a weapon. It funds global influence, flexes muscle in boardrooms and battlefields alike. Even after sanctions slashed Western investments, the Kremlin pivoted seamlessly. Oil flowed to India, China, and beyond. Those Asian allies propped up the economy, funneling billions back to sustain the endless war machine. Or did they? The facade buckled as Ukraine's strikes multiplied. Persistent drones chipped away at vulnerable fuel hubs, eroding the once unassailable edifice. Cracks widened in the Kremlin's defense. By July, Russia slapped an unexpected gasoline export ban on producers. Officials claimed it was due to surging summer demands, travel spikes and harvest rushes. But analysts saw through it. Was this the smoking gun linking to Ukraine's refinery assaults? Plunged into chaos, revelations poured in. Gas stations erupted in frenzy. Motorist queues snaked for miles, engines idling impatiently, exhaust fumes adding to the haze. Desperate hands gripped pumps tighter, waiting hours in sun-scorched heat or rain-slicked chill. Disruptions rippled outward. Delays snarled supply chains, turning routine trips into ordeals. And then, the dam broke. Russian-appointed puppets in occupied Ukraine lands confessed openly, fuel woes gripped them. Shortages ran rampant, exposing vulnerabilities Putin swore impervious. But here's the spine-chilling twist. If Ukraine's precise, targeted assaults could shatter Russia's economic backbone without civilian bloodshed, what dark truths lie ahead for the Kremlin's crumbling war effort? Could this be the moment the bear realizes its claws are dulled? Feel the crackling tension in the air, a shift in power so seismic, the world might never be the same. What retaliation lurks in the shadows, poised to humiliate an empire on the brink? Stay tuned, as the flames of resistance burn brighter. Will Russia's fuel famine fuel its collapse, or ignite an even fiercer response? The battlefield just got hotter, and more unpredictable than ever. In the wake of intensifying conflicts, the landscape of the Ukraine-Russia war has shifted dramatically, particularly regarding fuel supplies and their implications. Reports emerged of extensive delays and shortages, as lines of vehicles waiting for gasoline stretched for miles. This crisis was acutely felt in occupied Ukrainian areas, where Russian-backed leaders began to acknowledge a dire fuel situation. A shocking revelation: how did the war affect fuel supplies in Russia? In the Zaporizhia region, where the demand for fuel surged, Governor Yevgeny Balitsky disclosed that ongoing refinery repairs, coupled with the threat of Ukrainian strikes, severely hampered logistics. He candidly stated, in the Zaporizhia region, the fuel shortage is further complicated by logistics issues and the threat of enemy attacks on fuel trains. This contrast from typical Kremlin narratives revealed a troubling transparency, something rarely seen in Russian state communication. In the Crimea region, Sergei Aksionov, the Kremlin-installed governor, confirmed similar challenges, saying, "This is an objective situation, which could last for up to a month more." His admissions suggested that the fuel crisis could persist as long as the war endured, signaling a crucial turning point in Russian officials' rhetoric about the war's impact on daily life. Narrative twist: the mere acknowledgement of these fuel issues was significant. Typically, Russian officials stick to a predetermined script from the Kremlin, avoiding any mention of failures. However, the American nonprofit organization, the Institute for the Study of War, pointed out in its assessment that state media, while recognizing the gasoline shortages, downplayed the Ukrainian campaign's role in exacerbating the situation. This represents a critical insight into the psychological warfare at play. While Ukraine directly strikes military targets, Russia grapples with the fallout on its civilian infrastructure. The situation escalates beyond politics. As gas stations were forced to close due to supply disruptions, the Russian Independent Fuel Union disclosed that over 10 regions, from Ryazan to invisible territories in the Far East, were grappling with acute fuel scarcities. Dmitry Tortev of the State Duma's Anti-Monopoly Committee characterized local shortages as widespread and worsening. Climactic question: with civilian life now feeling the consequences of war, will this crisis reshape public sentiment in Russia towards the ongoing conflict? Time will tell as the struggle for resources intertwines with the human cost of the war. In the gripping tale of modern warfare, a severe fuel crisis is unraveling in Russia, a crisis fueled, quite literally, by the ongoing conflict. As missile strikes reverberate across the region, the repercussions are becoming painfully evident. Those living far from the battlefields, inside the very heart of Russia, are beginning to feel the heat. Weeks pass without fuel deliveries to many gas stations, forcing some to shutter their doors. Yet, the narrative crafted by Russian officials over the years has often tried to attribute these shortages to tourism demands or farming needs. But the harsh reality is clear: Ukraine's relentless drone and missile operations have dramatically disrupted Russia's energy infrastructure. The Institute for the Study of War, or ISW, has made it known that these strikes are impacting the domestic gasoline market, leading to serious shortages and escalating prices, spurring inflation, and destabilizing the Russian economy. What's particularly concerning is the shift in media coverage. State-run outlets, known for their strict narrative control, are beginning to cover fuel shortages more openly, an indicator that this crisis is breaking through into mainstream Russian society. This isn't a fleeting issue. As days drag on, the situation deteriorates swiftly, with towns across Russia facing dwindling supplies and mounting frustrations. Analysts report that the landscape of availability for gasoline is changing rapidly. Regions once believed unaffected are now grappling with scarcity. From the Far East and Crimea, the fuel shortages have crept into central areas like Nizhny Novgorod. Visioner, an open-source intelligence analyst, reveals a shocking trend: more than 20 regions are now reporting a severe fuel crunch. The list grows longer: Ryazan, Samara, and Tatarstan among them, each area echoing the struggle of those caught in a spiraling crisis. The sound of empty pumps and the smell of frustration fills the air as citizens confront a reality where simply refueling a vehicle becomes an arduous task. Prices soar on the black market, reaching almost $9 a gallon, a shocking reality that forces people into desperate choices. Old trucks stand idle in driveways, fuel tanks dry, dreams of travel dimmed by scarcity. As Ukraine continues its defense, the resonance of its retaliation is felt far beyond the battlefield. The conflict has reshaped lives, not just in Ukraine but within Russia itself, showcasing the far-reaching consequences of war. This ongoing crisis is a stark reminder of how the fires of conflict can ignite shortages and spark turbulence on both sides of a border. And so, the stage is set for an unexpected twist. The people of Russia face not only the consequences of a war they never asked for but also the bitter irony of a conflict that has brought the battle to their doorsteps. As the oil dwindles, will the citizens rise up, or will they remain passive in the face of hardship? The clock is ticking as the impact of this crisis deepens, leaving many questioning what comes next in this evolving narrative of conflict and its far-reaching effects. A crisis has unfolded across Russia that echoes the chilling sounds of despair, as fuel shortages grip the nation. Starting from the Far East and Crimea, the lack of gasoline has spread like wildfire, now affecting over 20 regions, including Ryazan, Nizhny Novgorod, and Samara. The clock is ticking, and the situation is getting dire. Imagine pulling up to a gas station only to be told you can only buy a meager 10 to 20 liters of gas, or none at all. Many stations have halted the supply of vital 92 and 95 octane fuels for weeks, and some are shuttered completely. The dark underbelly of the market has emerged, with desperate citizens turning to black market suppliers, paying a shocking price of up to $9 per gallon for the lifeblood they need. For many, such prices are astronomical, as the median monthly salary in Russia is merely $1,200. Daily life grows more challenging, with even official gas prices soaring. On September 10, It was reported that the average price at the pump was about 64.01 rubles per liter, but those numbers are likely manipulated. In reality, the cost has likely surpassed 66 rubles per liter, like a canary in a coal mine. Just imagine a family filling their car's tank and suddenly realizing they've burned through half their monthly earnings just to travel. This financial hammer has been exacerbated recently. In certain regions, the price has jumped to $4.52 per gallon, more than double what it was. With tensions boiling, gas station managers find themselves in a chaotic scramble for solutions, imposing absurd limits on how much fuel each person can buy. With each passing day, the crisis deepens, casting shadows over city streets and hearts alike as frustration boils over. Where will this lead? Will the people rise against the turmoil? Will the Kremlin regain control, or is this just the beginning of a whirlwind of challenges ahead? The air is thick with uncertainty, and all eyes are on the unfolding drama as gas stations resemble battlefields rather than places of refuge. What lies ahead remains to be seen. Russia's fuel debacle worsens. Authorities scramble with bizarre tactics like rationing gasoline at pumps, as reported by intelligence analyst Special Kursin Cat. Panic grows in queues stretching for miles. Imagine the roar of engines idling, the sharp stench of petrol hanging heavy in the air. Can Russia choke on its own fuel crisis, grinding its war machine to a halt? Picture it, drivers clawing at empty tanks, their hands shaking on cold steering wheels. Every dawn brings fresh horror. Dozens of alerts flood in, painting a picture of collapse. The fuel crunch spreads like wildfire, devouring region after region. At stations where gasoline lingers, it's doled out stingy. No more than 10 to 20 liters per car, or just for special vehicles. Why? Because Ukraine's blows on fuel hubs bite deep. They must ramp up. No mercy. Other chains twist fate. Take HTK. They've barred regular buyers from AI-92 gasoline. Only loyal card wielders get a share. Fuel voids in Russia deepen, analysts note. In Caucasia, HTK ghosts out everyone except card folk. Half of Crimea's pumps? Shuttered. The mighty Lukoil dives headfirst into madness. They scrap fuel cards in one spot. They ban cans from filling with gas. Chaos reigns supreme across Russian lands, including seized Crimea. A local cries out, critical mess here. Pumps closed wide. No gas left, just diesel and natural gas. Planting season starts soon. This could ruin it all. Officials ration fiercely. Government rides get priority. Nizhny Novgorod, Russia's hub of giants, feels the sting. School buses stall silent, no fuel at depots. Kids stranded in foggy mornings. The bite of winter nibbling at fingers. Yet leaders bluster, no big deals here. Even the distant Far East trembles. Worlds from Ukraine's front, its tremors shake. Russia's fabric phrase twists into desperation. But what blowback awaits Putin now? Tension mounts. Will Russia's empire crack? Picture flames licking at reserves, screams of the fuel less echoing. What twisted strategy will spill next? In a world unraveling at the seams, a governor named Alexei Maslov faced mounting distress in his district, Vanino. As gas stations ran dry and vehicles queued for fuel, he stepped forward to reassure the public. More fuel is on the way, he claimed emphatically. But his words fell on skeptical ears. Despite his insistence that there was no actual shortage, panic swept through the population. Imagine the scene, weary drivers standing beside their cars, the pungent scent of gasoline mingling with anxiety as they waited for relief. Maslov urged calm, attributing the chaos to repairs at refineries and overwhelming demand. Stop panic buying, he pleaded, it's only making it worse. But who could heed his call when fear of an impending fuel crisis loomed larger? As the situation spiraled, desperation grew. Black market dealers emerged from the shadows, their prices spiking to exploit people's vulnerabilities. What once seemed a distant conflict, a special military operation, was now uncomfortably close to home. Month by month, the war impacted everyday lives, leaving Russians grappling with unforeseen realities. Was it only a matter of time before panic took a firmer grip? Or could the governor's assurances spark some semblance of hope amidst the looming chaos? As uncertainty reigned, bridges were being burned daily along with the trust in leadership. With mounting disruptions and misinformation fueling the fire, the question remained, who would emerge unscathed from this turmoil? In a recent report, locals echoed concerns as families struggled to refuel their vehicles and school buses sat idle, unable to pick up children. Even the less afflicted Far East felt the tremors of conflict, albeit not as intensely as their Ukrainian neighbors. Finally, the truth began to surface. Ordinary Russians were starting to confront the harsh realities of the Kremlin's aggressive agenda. Could there be a turning point for a populace grappling with growing discontent? Would the weight of the war's consequences finally provoke a significant awakening among the citizens? The unfolding crisis threatened to deepen as the panic buying intensified, creating an artificial shortage. Maslov's speeches echoed hollow against the backdrop of crumbling trust and tangible fears. As Russian families navigated the realities of scarce resources, they were left to wonder, what would their next steps be in this perilous landscape? They were not merely spectators in a distant saga, they were living the repercussions of actions taken far from their homes. As the conflict loomed ever larger, the question was not just about fuel, what else would be sacrificed on this tumultuous road? In a gripping turn of events, the unfolding conflict between Russia and Ukraine has taken a stark shift, exposing deeper truths and unexpected reactions. Initially, many Russians believed the so-called special military operation would unfold swiftly, without intruding into their daily lives. However, as days turned into months and months into years, the ramifications of the war have crept steadily closer. The stark reality is that while Ukrainians endure destruction and despair, the everyday Russian citizen is also feeling the mounting consequences of Kremlin aggression. Russian families are grappling with escalating hardship. The invasion's aftermath has not brought improvement. Instead, lives are marked by sharp increases in food prices and dwindling access to essentials. Feelings of isolation and governmental control weave through the fabric of their daily existence. From censorship of free speech to restrictions on internet access, the grip of authority tightens around them. Heartbreak deepens as families mourn their lost loved ones, husbands, brothers, fathers, and sons dispatched to the front lines, never to return. Despite attempts by Russian media to paint a rosy picture, the veil is lifting. The narrative spun by officials is faltering, and even die-hard nationalists and influential military bloggers have begun to question the narrative thrust upon them. Influential voices, like military history author Chris_O, are breaking ranks, revealing discontent. With boldness, they share images of Ukrainian drones and express bewilderment at how these attacks continuously bypass defenses. As the conflict escalates, one pivotal incident stands out, a retaliatory strike by Ukraine. Following a devastating attack on Kyiv that claimed civilian lives, Ukraine launched a decisive response targeting Belgorod. Using advanced long-range weaponry, this retaliation left the city in darkness, disrupting power supply and water services. Reports of massive blackouts flooded in, painting a stark image of chaos. Was this revenge justified? Or merely an escalation into deeper conflict? The Belgorod attack ignited fresh discussions within Russia about the war's progress and the government's failures to shield its citizens. Many individuals are now grappling with a painful truth. While the Kremlin continues to trumpet victories, the harsh reality beneath the surface is far grimmer. Can the Russian people maintain their unwavering loyalty as their lives worsen under the weight of continuous conflict? With each blow struck, the narrative tightens around them, challenging their perceptions of right and wrong in this turbulent era. As Ukraine decisively responds, the tides of war shift dramatically. Will this retaliation spark a change in public sentiment among Russians, or further entrench their beliefs? The answers lie amid the shocking revelations and emotional turmoil that both nations face as the conflict rages on. In the shadow of an escalating conflict, a fervent call is echoing through Russian online forums, a desperate plea for a unified agency to combat Ukrainian drones. Amid struggles and unfulfilled promises, one blog, Two Majors, passionately argues for enhanced support for the Russian military. Right now, accountability is non-existent, they contend. Essential measures are not being pursued. Our esteemed leaders must step up, equip mobile defense units around the oil refineries. As the pressure mounts, a wave of conspiracy theories slithers through social media, drawing intrigue and suspicion alike. Some assert that officials in the gas industry are allowing their refineries to be obliterated as part of a twisted scheme to inflate fuel prices. Others, more grounded in reality, theorize that Russia is simply running short on surface-to-air missiles, leaving a gaping hole in its defenses against the relentless assaults of Ukrainian drones. The absence of robust countermeasures means these attacks will continue unabated. And what of Ukraine? Each drone striking Russian territory is not just a chance encounter, it is the culmination of relentless planning, intelligence gathering, and strategizing. Analysts reveal a staggering insight: Ukrainian strikes have decimated approximately a quarter of Russia's oil refining capabilities, leading to a severe energy crisis. Igor Sushko's revelation strikes hard. Evidence indicates 25% of oil refining capacity is offline due to Ukrainian assaults. Daily, 27,000 tons of surplus crude have nowhere to go, leading to 50% of gas stations in occupied Crimea closing their doors. In the southern federal district, 14.2% have shuttered. Even with its vast energy reserves, Russia struggles with storage, creating a dire situation as they face crippling repercussions. Imagine the sounds of crisis: alarms blaring, the roar of drones in the sky, the scent of scorched metal, and the palpable tension as lives hang in the balance. The question looms: how long can either side withstand this relentless cycle of attack and counterattack? Will Russian forces heed the call for unification and action before it's too late? In the newly painted landscape of warfare, the stakes are painfully high. And with each passing drone strike, the war's pulse quickens. How much longer can this conflict persist before everything changes? The conflict between Russia and Ukraine has reached a boiling point, and the consequences are being felt on both sides. The deterioration in Russia's military and industrial capacity has triggered a spiraling crisis, particularly affecting its oil production. Daily, 27,000 tons of crude oil are left stranded, with almost half of the gas stations in occupied Crimea permanently closed, reflecting a staggering 14.2% reduction across the southern federal district. This situation worsened as Ukrainian forces ramped up their targeted strikes on oil facilities. The destruction of storage tanks has compounded Russia's woes, leaving refineries overwhelmed with crude oil they cannot process. The pressing reality is that without ample storage, Russia must cut back on production. On September 25, Ukrainian commander Oleksandr Syrsky declared the adversary's military-industrial capabilities are severely compromised. He described the situation as a fuel crisis in Russia, one that promises to escalate. Ukraine's relentless drone units, aptly named the Birds of Magyar, continue to identify and strike Russian refineries, inflicting damage that undermines not only oil production but also Russia's lingering ambitions in this conflict. As fuel supplies diminish, the effects ripple throughout the Russian economy, leading to ever-worsening living conditions. Citizens, facing hardships, are likely to shift their frustrations toward their leader, Vladimir Putin. With each blow, Ukraine is drawing a clear line: strike back harder when attacked. The theater of war is not just on the battlefield, it's a game of endurance, strategy, and survival. A looming question remains: what happens when Russia runs out of fuel to fuel its ambitions and its citizens' patience wears thin? As the struggle intensifies, it feels as if the very soul of both nations is at stake, with stakes higher than ever before. In this unfolding drama, the answer, shrouded in uncertainty, could change the course of history forever. In recent months, the conflict between Russia and Ukraine has intensified, revealing the stark realities of war and the consequences of retaliatory strikes. As Russia's military strategy faltered, its reliance on airstrikes surged. In a shocking turn of events, Russia launched attacks on Kyiv, prompting Ukraine to respond with its own retaliation that would leave a mark. On September 29, 2025, Ukraine carried out a fierce revenge strike on Belgorod, a city near the Russian border. This counteraction was not just a show of strength, it was a calculated response to escalating Russian aggression. The assaults on Ukraine had crossed a line, and now the balance of power was shifting. Ukraine employed long-range weaponry, targeting key energy facilities. The strikes left residents in darkness and without water, an unintentional consequence that underscored the stakes of this confrontation. What's particularly notable is the response from Russian officials. Typically, Russia downplays Ukraine's effectiveness in such strikes, often resorting to justifications that cast doubt on the damage inflicted. Yet, this time was different. The Belgorod attack had left its civilian population vulnerable, and the regional governor was quick to highlight the chaos that ensued. Hospitals and emergency services faced power shortages, and public water supply was hindered. The contrast between the two nations became painfully clear. Ukraine's military actions were focused on strategic targets, while Russia's strikes indiscriminately hit civilian areas, leaving behind a trail of devastation. Despite this, Russia endeavored to paint Ukraine as the aggressor, propagating the narrative that Ukraine's responses made it a terrorist state, a story that many outside Russia refused to believe. But the airstrikes weren't just isolated incidences, they came after days of relentless drone and missile attacks from Russia that had left several Ukrainian cities shattered. While Ukraine's strikes aimed at significant military assets, Russia's approach often threatened civilians. The death toll continued to climb, with countless innocents trapped in the crossfire of a war that continues to spiral out of control. These developments come amid growing speculation among Russian commentators and bloggers. A suggestion emerged that Russian oil facilities were deliberately left vulnerable, some claiming that officials were allowing them to be attacked to raise fuel prices. Others pointed out the evident shortage of anti-drone defenses, leading to devastating attacks on vital energy infrastructure. In a world where energy dominance translates to military power, Ukraine has found an opportunity. By systematically targeting Russia's oil and gas facilities, Ukrainian forces have effectively crippled Russia's refining capabilities, causing 1/4 of its production to be offline. Reports emerged that gas stations were closing, and crude oil was piling up with nowhere to go, a nightmare for any energy-dependent economy. The stark reality painted by Ukraine's military campaign is dire. Without fuel, even the strongest armies suffer. The imminent energy crisis threatens to unravel the very fabric of Russian society. As citizens begin to lose faith in their leadership. As this saga unfolds, one must wonder, how much longer can Russia sustain its campaign amidst these relentless strikes? The landscape of warfare is shifting, and every decision now echoed through the corridors of power. Every retaliatory strike could change the course of the conflict. In this decaying theater of war, one question remains at the forefront: who will ultimately stand victorious? Stay tuned as we continue to unravel the complexities of this war. The future holds uncertainties, and each move carries weighty consequences that could reshape the geopolitical landscape forever. The stakes have never been higher.